Okay, so I can guarantee this one is going to divide the room. A self-proclaimed millionaire in London who claims earnings of £100,000 per month brags online that he sees double yellow lines as a VIP parking opportunity as opposed to a fine to be avoided. He says that when he parks his £90,000 BMW outside Harrods and comes back to a fine, he sees that as VIP parking as opposed to an offence which everyone else would seem to avoid. Now, most of you understand what double yellow lines mean, and those of you that don't probably just avoid them altogether for fear that you don't understand them and you'll end up with a fine. The rules are fairly straightforward in the sense that sometimes there are signs telling you when the lines are in operation, other times you might be a blue badge holder and you can park there, or if you're simply dropping off a passenger or picking someone up, that's generally okay unless the signs say otherwise, but you can't hang around and wait for them to come back. Also, light goods have got a period of 20 minutes that they can load and unload, and heavy goods vehicles, this is uplifted to about 40 minutes, as long as the driver's prepared to explain to the local enthusiastic warden that you had no alternative but to load or unload your goods there, other than round the corner. So this throws up a very interesting question and debate. Is it okay that somebody can treat these lines as VIP parking just because they have the money to pay the fines? In this case, reportedly £7,000 within one particular period. Or is it something that the law should stamp out? Because overall, parking on the double yellow lines against the rules, receiving a fine and paying the fine is just fulfillment of the law as it currently stands. One argument could be that if someone is paying the fine because they've parked on the lines, then it's perfectly fine, pun intended. Another view might be that that's absolutely exploiting the system, making it dangerous, causing obstruction, making a hazard, and is otherwise just plain unfair to everybody else because they can't afford the fines. And secondly, what could a local authority do if they chose to do something about this to prevent this driver or drivers like it from parking on these lines? Well, as a very broad brush approach, this could give rise to a nuisance if the lines are designed, which they usually are, to prevent congestion in a certain area, to prevent obstruction in a certain area, and therefore if someone is knowingly breaking the law, which it would be in this case because the lines are clear, and particularly if they're doing it over a period of time, they would be knowingly breaking the law and knowing that the lines, or they ought to know that the lines are there for a reason to prevent said obstructions and so on and so forth. It could well amount to a nuisance for which the local authority could apply for a specific prohibitory injunction against said keeper of the vehicle and thus any driver of that vehicle from parking on those lines. Because if they continue to park on those lines and it is causing any such obstruction, then there will be a balance of the convenience in the test for an injunction, because an injunction is an equitable remedy. Those of you who are law students will have great fun looking into this one. Under the relevant tests for an injunction, I'd be interested in your comments, any of you that are studying law or used to study law, in the comments section below. So as I said, this is likely to divide the room because some of you will think that's perfectly okay. Some of you might choose to do that yourself. In this reported story, he said that it was much more convenient to park on the lines opposite the store, otherwise finding it very difficult to park elsewhere. And the cost of parking there didn't really bother him because he earned enough money. Others of you might feel that that's entirely unfair because you couldn't afford the fine and nobody should be able to do that on a regular basis and get away with it. But, as with anything else in law, until there is a law in place that specifically prevents that from happening, anyone is generally free to do so. And in this case, there is a law that prohibits parking on the lines, and there is a penalty for parking on the lines by way of the fine, and only if he didn't pay the fine would he get into any more serious trouble, because if he pays the fine, that's the end of the matter, because local authorities do have the jurisdiction to lay fines at the doorstep of the driver or the registered keeper of the vehicle for parking on those lines, and the fine is usually what they say it is, whether that's £70 or £100, usually reduced by 50% if paid within 14 days. So if one receives such a fine and pays it, that's usually the end of the matter. But what if a local authority gets so frustrated, or what if the local residents get so frustrated that they petition the local authority to do something about it? Well, in my view, as a very broad brush approach, not that this is legal advice to the local authorities or otherwise, but a very broad brush approach would be to go to court to seek an injunction against the keeper of the vehicle to prohibit any driver of that vehicle from repeating that offence. And the arguments would be that particularly they are doing it regularly. They know that it is illegal. They know it's breaking the rules. They know that it is bending the rules to suit their needs. Not that I'm really taking any view on this, because I can see both arguments. I can see the argument that paying the fines and parking on the lines is perfectly fine, pun intended, as I said. But I also see the view that he's being entirely inconsiderate to all of the other residents, all of the other drivers, everyone else that uses that road that might ultimately be obstructed or in some other way inconvenienced by the use of those lines on a regular basis. Do let me know what you think in the comments. I expect this to divide the room. I can see both arguments, but I'd be very interested to see what you say in the comments. And as always, I would love for you to like this video and subscribe and to share it with somebody, because I am on a mission to 250,000 subscribers and then to 1 million subscribers, so that I know that I've helped you all. And if you really want to know what I personally think about this, check out my Black Belt Secrets in the description below. That's my sister channel, now coming up on 60,000 subscribers, and I might just share my views there. In the meantime, thank you for watching.